Judge Judy looked at me, but all I could see was my son's face, smirking from the plaintiff's side. "My father's a liar who stole my future," he told the court without even flinching. My hands trembled, the same hands that once held him when he was too scared to sleep. And now he had dragged me here, for money I didn't owe. Now the only question was, will Judge Judy give justice, or will betrayal win? Judge Judy's gavel had not even struck yet when the boy smirked, a calm, cutting smirk, too practiced for someone his age. The father felt the room tilt, as if betrayal itself had pulled up a chair. The courtroom lights glowed with that stark, unforgiving white, bright enough to expose every flaw, every tremble, every truth pretending to stay hidden. The camera would have opened with a slow push toward the plaintiff's table, where the boy sat stiffly, arms crossed, chin lifted as though the entire room owed him an apology. He did not look 13. He looked older, colder, shaped by resentment too heavy for a teenager to hold without cracking. Yet there he was, chin angled like a tiny general, marching himself into a battle he thought he could win. His father stood across the courtroom, hands clasped together so tightly the knuckles paled. He tried to steady his breathing, but the sound of the boy's chair creaking each time he shifted seemed to echo louder than reason. He could not look at him for too long. Every second brought a new memory, and memories were painful here. Judge Judy scanned the room the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, searching for the fracture point before touching the wound. Her gaze lingered on the father first, reading the fatigue behind his posture, the quiet ache in his stillness. Then she shifted to the boy. The smirk did not fade. It deepened. "Are we ready?" Judge Judy asked, but her eyes were already measuring the plaintiff's arrogance the way a storm measures pressure. The father swallowed hard. He wished he understood what he had done wrong, not legally, but emotionally. He had replayed the weeks leading up to this moment hundreds of times. None of it made sense, not the email, not the summons, and certainly not the accusation typed in his son's name. My father stole my future. The phrase clung to him like a bruise. Across the aisle, the boy tapped his fingers in a rhythm that did not match his heartbeat. He was steady, too steady, something coached, something rehearsed. The father kept his voice low. "Son, you do not have to do this." The boy did not turn. "Yes, I do." Judge Judy lifted a brow, just one, but the gesture cut through the room like a blade. "Young man," she said, voice sharp but steady, "you speak to your father with respect in my courtroom. Start again." For a second, the smirk flickered. Just a second. Then it returned, stubborn and self-assured. The father glanced down at his trembling hands, the same hands that had once held this boy through night terrors, fevers, and thunderstorms. Now those hands were evidence against him. Judge Judy leaned forward slowly, elbows resting on the bench. The light caught her eyes, giving them a reflective sheen, like someone about to expose a lie that had been waiting too long to be heard. "Tell me," she said to the boy, voice quiet but commanding. "What exactly do you believe your father stole from you?" The smirk finally faltered, but only for a breath, and that single breath was enough for the entire courtroom to feel the storm coming. Judge Judy's stare sharpened as she waited for the boy to answer. His lips parted, then hesitated, and in that hesitation, everything began to unravel. The boy exhales like a performer stepping onto a stage. Judge Judy watches him with the stillness of someone who has already solved the puzzle. The father feels his heartbeat in places he did not know a heartbeat could reach. The boy straightens in his chair, shoulders pulled back, chin tilted just enough to suggest superiority. The fluorescent lights above cast a thin glow across his face, bright on one half, shadowed on the other. It made him look divided, as if confidence and fear were wrestling under his skin. "Your Honor," he begins, voice steady, almost rehearsed. "My father lied to me. He promised me money for school, for my future, and then he stole it." Stole. The word lands like a weapon thrown without hesitation. Judge Judy does not blink. She lowers her chin, studying him with that signature mix of skepticism and quiet authority. "That is a serious accusation, young man. You had better have facts, not feelings." The boy smiles, not kindly, not nervously, but with the self-assurance of someone who believes he is untouchable. I do. I have everything. His fingers graze the manila folder beside him, but he does not open it yet. Not yet. He wants the moment to breathe. He wants the courtroom to feel his control. The father sees that and feels something inside him tug, fear, grief. Maybe both. He tries to speak, but Judy lifts a hand. Let him finish. The boy leans forward, savoring attention the way some people savor applause. My father told me he'd been saving for my college. He told everyone that. But when I checked the account 2 months ago, the money was gone. All of it. The father shuts his eyes, inhaling sharply. Not because the boy is wrong, but because the story is twisted beyond recognition. Judy narrows her gaze. And did you ask him why the money was gone before you filed a lawsuit in my courtroom? A flicker. Just a flicker of hesitation. But arrogance quickly fills the space where honesty might have lived. No, he answers, because he lies. He always lies. And I wanted proof he couldn't talk his way out of. Judy's eyebrow lifts higher this time. You assumed guilt before asking a single question? The boy shrugs with carefully crafted indifference. If he had nothing to hide, why would he be nervous? Across the aisle, the father lifts his trembling hands, fingers curling into his palms. He's not angry. Anger has heat. This moment carries cold. The cold of realizing your son does not see you as human anymore, only as an opponent to defeat. Judge Judy taps her pen twice against the bench. The sound is small but sharp. Young man, confidence is not the same thing as truth, and right now you are giving me a lot of the first and none of the second. The boy lifts his chin, but the corner of his mouth pulls tight, a sign that the armor is thinner than it looks. Judy leans back, voice sharpening. If you want this court to believe your father stole from you, then you will show me real evidence, not attitude. The boy inhales slowly, theatrically, and then, finally, he places a hand on the folder. I have everything I need right here, he says. The folder slides across the table with a slow, deliberate rasp. The father's eyes widen. Judge Judy's expression shifts, not with surprise, but with interest. Then open it, she says. The folder hits the bench with a sound far too heavy for paper. The boy straightens like a magician about to reveal a trick. Judge Judy leans forward, slow, deliberate, like she can already smell the lie beneath the ink. The boy drags the manila folder closer and flips it open with a snap, sending a harsh rustle through the courtroom. The fluorescent lights catch the glossy edges of the printed screenshots and bank statements inside. The papers look neat. Too neat. Like someone arranged them not to prove truth, but to perform it. He slides the first page toward Judge Judy. A bank statement, numbers circled in red, dates highlighted in neon yellow. Judy glances once, one measured, razor-sharp glance, and the audience can almost hear thoughts clicking into place behind her eyes. Where did you get these? She asks. Myself, the boy says proudly. I printed everything, every transfer he made, every withdrawal, every lie he tried to hide. The father's breath catches. He feels his ribs tighten around it like a trap. He steps forward slightly, but Judy raises a hand without looking at him. I said I would speak to him first, she reminds him. Do not make me repeat myself. The father freezes, shoulders lowered, grief settling into his posture like weight he has carried for years. The boy pushes another document forward. Here, look at the date on this transfer. That was my college fund, and he took it out without telling me. Judy lifts the page gently, too gently, as if testing the paper's truth against its bravado. She traces a finger along the highlighted date, then flips to the next page. Her eyes narrow. The courtroom stills. The boy does not notice the tension. He is too busy basking in the spotlight, arms crossed again, mouth curved in that same razor-edged smirk. There's more, he says. Messages too. Proof he lied right to my face. He slides screenshots of text messages forward, color-coded, time-stamped, formatted with suspicious perfection. Judy's fingers pause over the margins, just long enough for anyone watching closely to sense something is wrong. Did you type these up yourself? She asks casually. The boy scoffs. Why would I do that? Everything is real. The father's eyes lock onto one particular date on the screenshot. A tremor runs through him. Not fear, not rage. Recognition. Memory. Something the boy clearly does not remember. He looks at his son with a sadness that does not belong in a courtroom, but in the quiet corners of a home where love once lived. Judy lays the papers flat. "The formatting is interesting," she says quietly. "Very consistent." The boy takes this as praise. "Thank you. I was not complimenting you," she cuts in. The smirk falters, just a hair, enough for the room to inhale. Judy shifts the papers again, her expression turning from curiosity to calculation. There's a crack in the story, thin but sharp, and she sees it. The father notices her change in demeanor and feels a flicker of hope, a small one, fragile but real. Judy places the papers down with a soft thud and finally meets the boy's eyes. "Something is wrong here," she says, "and it is not what either of you think." Her hand moves toward the next page, slow, deliberate. The boy stiffens, the father braces, and Judy's voice drops to a controlled whisper. "Explain this, if you can." Judge Judy lifts the page slowly, like peeling back a secret the room is not ready for. The boy shifts in his chair. The father feels the air change, tightening, sharpening, like the moment before glass breaks. Judge Judy studies the document in her hand with the kind of stare that has ended thousands of lies long before the liar realized they were caught. Her eyes move not across the words, but around them, watching the spacing, the formatting, the digital fingerprint left behind by someone who thought details did not matter. "Interesting," she murmurs. The boy swallows. It is small, barely visible, but the sound of it seems to echo. He tries to hide the flicker of anxiety by straightening his posture, but the shift is too hurried, too defensive. "What do you mean, interesting?" he asks. Judy lays the page down and folds her hands neatly on top of it. The room senses the shift from questioning to dissecting. "These messages," she says evenly, "all have identical margins, the same font size, the same spacing. Even the timestamps line up in a way that is unusual." The boy frowns. "So?" "So," Judy replies. "Authentic screenshots rarely look this clean. The alignment is too perfect. If these are captured from different days and different apps, they should not look like they were printed from the same template." A thin line forms between the boy's brows. The father closes his eyes briefly, feeling something warm push against his ribs. Hope, but also sorrow. Hope because truth is stepping forward. Sorrow because his son is the one truth is stepping toward. The boy leans in. "Are you saying I made them up?" Judy tilts her head. It is a small gesture, but it carries a weight that could silence a stadium. "I'm saying they deserve scrutiny." The boy's breath grows faster. "Look at the timestamp here." Judy taps the corner of a screenshot. "This message claims it was sent at 7:14 p.m., but your father was with the school counselor at that exact time, according to this attendance log." She lifts another piece of paper, a document the father did not know she had, a witness form, a time-stamped entry. The boy's jaw tightens. "He probably lied to them too." Judy's voice sharpens like a scalpel. "Do not insult my intelligence or theirs." Silence. Then, Judy leans back, letting the truth settle on the boy like a weight he cannot lift. "Young man," she says carefully, "these documents look doctored." The word hits harder than a gavel. The boy blinks rapidly. "They're not! I swear!" "Stop!" Judy's tone slices through his panic. "If you fabricated evidence, this case is no longer about missing money. It is about integrity." The father inhales sharply, hands trembling again, but for a different reason now. Not fear, not guilt. Something closer to heartbreak. The boy's eyes dart to the audience, to the bench, to the exit, as if searching for someone who promised this would be easy. Judy watches him unravel. "You did not create these on your own," she says, voice steady as ice. "Someone helped you. Someone coached you." The boy's lips part. A breath escapes. A crack opens, small but undeniable. Judy leans forward, voice quiet but merciless. "Did you make these documents yourself?" The boy's silence stretches too long. Judge Judy waits, calm, unblinking, merciless. And in that stillness, the truth begins to sweat through his confidence. The boy's throat bobs with a swallow he tries to hide. His hands retreat from the folder as though the papers inside have suddenly become hot enough to burn. The smirk, the arrogant armor he wore so proudly, has vanished completely, replaced with something fragile, something scared. Judge Judy does not fill the silence. She lets it breathe, let it sting, let it reveal. Answer the question, she says finally. Did you create these documents yourself? His voice breaks on the first word. No, the answer is too quick, too brittle, like a branch snapping under weight. Judy taps the paper with her finger. Then explain why the metadata on this printout shows it was generated at 2:17 a.m. from the same device that printed your homework packet. A ripple of gasps moves through the small audience seating. The father's head lifts slightly, not triumph, but disbelief mixed with heartbreak. The boy blinks rapidly, panic blooming underneath the surface. I was just organizing stuff. I formatted them, but the messages are real. Organizing is not the same as creating, Judy responds. And formatting is not the same as honesty. The boy's chest rises and falls too fast. His breaths come in shallow bursts. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, Judy says. You are a young man who thought presentation could replace truth. The father steps forward ever so slightly, unable to hold his silence. Your Honor, please, he's just... Judy raises a finger, not at the father, but toward the boy. No, let him speak for himself. The boy's eyes dart toward his father, just for a moment filled with a lifetime's worth of pain, confusion, resentment, and something softer, something like regret. He looks away quickly. No one helped me, he mutters. I did it because I needed proof. He wasn't going to admit what he did. What he did, Judy repeats, folding her hands. Or what you were told he did? The boy freezes, his breath catches. Because there it is, the pressure point, the hidden wound, the whispering voice behind this entire case. He hesitates, and that hesitation is louder than any confession. Judy leans forward. Who told you to bring this case against your father? No one told me to, he stammers. Do not lie to me, she says, her tone sharpening like steel. You are not good at it. The boy flinches. The father closes his eyes, bracing for whatever truth is about to surface, praying it is not the one he fears. I asked you a direct question, Judy repeats. Who pushed you? Who fed you this story? The boy's eyes well with unshed tears, his voice barely audible. I can't say. You will, Judy replies. Now. His breath shudders. The courtroom feels colder. Tighter, as if the walls themselves are leaning in. The boy finally breaks. It wasn't my idea, he whispers. Someone told me to. Judy's gaze sharpens. Who? The boy's lips tremble, his voice cracks, and he speaks the name that makes the father's entire body go still. The name barely leaves the boy's lips, but it strikes the father like a blow. Judge Judy's eyes sharpen, fast, predatory. The room falls into the kind of silence that only truth can carve. The boy's voice cracks as he says the name again, quieter, like he regrets releasing it into the air. The father's shoulders slump, a soft collapse of muscle and spirit. It is not shock he feels, it is recognition, a recognition that tastes bitter. Judge Judy leans back in her seat. I see, she says, voice low but unmistakably edged. That explains quite a lot. The boy wipes at his eyes angrily, as if tears might betray the fierce front he has been trying so desperately to hold. They said he owed me. They said he took the money for himself. They told me the only way to get what was mine was to make it public. They, Judy repeats. You just gave me one name. The boy nods weakly. There were conversations. I don't know. It all happened so fast. Judy raises a brow. Young man, manipulation does not happen fast. It happens slow. It creeps. It whispers. It wraps itself around insecurity until you mistake someone else's voice for your own. The father looks at the floor. He knows this. He has lived this. The boy swallows hard. I just wanted someone to believe me. And you thought your father didn't? Judy asks, not unkindly. The boy hesitates. A subtle, painful inward flinch. He hasn't been around much, he whispers. The father opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. Not because he has no words, but because every word feels like it might shatter him further. Judy softens her tone, slightly, but noticeably. Absence does not equal theft. Distance does not equal betrayal. But influence, especially from someone with their own agenda, can distort everything. The boy blinks at her, confused. Agenda? Judy turns to him fully. The person who told you to file this case has a long history of resentment toward your father. I do not need to know every detail to see that. The father finally lifts his head, voice low. I tried to keep him out of this, out of all of it. The boy's gaze flickers toward him, wounded and unsure. You didn't tell me anything. Because you were a child, the father says, pain tightening every syllable. You deserved peace, not the war that adult dragged you into. A beat of silence. Heavy, emotional. Judge Judy watches them closely, measuring the growing fracture, not between father and son, but between truth and the lie the boy was pushed to believe. The courtroom doors remain closed, but the space inside feels like it is widening, between what the boy thought he knew and what he is beginning to understand. The boy wipes his eyes again, quieter this time. I didn't know. I really didn't. Judy nods once. And now that you do, the question is what you will do with the truth. She leans forward, voice razor soft. Tell me, why did this person want you to hate your father? If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you hold the boy responsible for the lawsuit, or the adult who planted the seed? The boy's confession hangs in the air like smoke, thin, poisonous, impossible to ignore. Judge Judy's gaze sharpens, cold and calculating. The father stands frozen, the name echoing inside him like a wound reopening. The boy repeats the name softly, barely audible, as though saying it too loudly might summon the person who planted this entire mess. His voice trembles. His fingers twist into the sleeves of his shirt, and for the first time since this case began, the arrogance drains out of him, not in a dramatic collapse, but in a quiet, heartbreaking surrender. Judge Judy inhales slowly, her expression changing with the precision of a surgeon deciding where to make the first cut. So, she says, tapping her pen once on the bench, it was them. The father closes his eyes, not because the name surprises him, but because it does not. Some truths are painful, precisely because they are familiar, because you've spent years hoping you were wrong about a person you knew deep down was capable of this. Your Honor, the father begins, voice hoarse, I didn't want him involved. I never wanted— Judy holds up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. I do not need justification. I need facts. The boy's lips tremble. They told me he took my money. They said he used it for himself. Judy leans in just a fraction. And you believe them? He nods slowly. They said he never cared, that he only pretended for other people, that he always chose everything else over me. The father feels his breath catch as though someone has placed a hand around his chest and squeezed. He takes a small step forward, not toward Judy, not toward the evidence, but toward his son. That is not true, he says quietly. The boy does not look up. Shame has a gravity of its own, and right now it pulls him inward, shrinking him in the chair he once sat in with such confidence. Judy's voice drops to a calculated calm. Young man, the person you named has a long history with your father. Conflict, jealousy, resentment, these things can twist intentions, especially when a child is caught in the crossfire. The boy wipes his cheek with the back of his hand. But they seem so sure. Manipulators always seem sure, Judy says. That's how they keep their power. The father presses his fingers to the edge of the defendant's table, grounding himself. I tried to protect you from them, he whispers. You were too young to understand how dangerous their bitterness can be. The boy finally lifts his head. His eyes are red, raw, searching. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you explain? Because I didn't want you to carry adult battles, the father replies. I wanted you to grow up free from their anger, even if it meant you misunderstood me. Something shifts in the boy's expression, something breaking, something healing, all at once. Judge Judy watches with razor focus. She is not here to comfort them. She's here to reveal truth, and truth is finally approaching. She reaches beside her bench and lifts a thin, sealed folder, one the father recognizes instantly, one he hoped would never be needed. The boy's eyes widen. What is that? Judy's tone grows slow and deliberate, each word a camera zoom tightening on the moment. This, she says, is something your father never intended to show you. But now, you need to see it. She places the folder on the bench. The boy stares at it, fear and curiosity tangled, and Judy whispers, "Inside this file is the truth your influencer never wanted you to know." The sealed folder sits like a heartbeat on the bench, quiet, steady, impossible to ignore. The boy stares at it with wide, frightened eyes. The father does not move. He already knows what is inside. Judge Judy rests her hand on the folder as if weighing not just paper, but consequences. The courtroom seems to shrink, the air thickening until even the ceiling lights feel dimmed by the gravity of what is about to be revealed. "Before I open this," Judy says, "I want both of you to understand something. Truth is not always comfortable, but comfort is not my job." The boy swallows. He looks suddenly much younger than the confident plaintiff who swaggered into the courtroom. His hands fold into each other, fingers tightening with a nervous rhythm he cannot control. Judy breaks the seal with a soft rip that seems to echo through the room. She pulls out a stack of papers, old receipts, confirmations, a series of letters, all carefully clipped together. The edges are worn, some corners yellowed by years of being handled but never shown. "This," she says, "is the documentation of what your father has done for you over the last 10 years. The boy frowns. "What do you mean?" Judy holds up the first sheet, an invoice from a specialist's clinic. "Medical bills," she explains, covered quietly, completely. The boy's brows knit. "Dad told me insurance." "No," the father whispers, voice trembling. "Insurance didn't cover any of that." Judy pulls out more papers, tutoring receipts, school supply lists paid in full, a coaching program, transportation fees, countless expenses the boy never knew existed because his father had made them invisible. Each page is a memory the father never bragged about. Each page is a sacrifice the boy never saw. The boy's breathing quickens. "Why didn't you tell me?" The father lets out a breath that seems to deflate years of restraint. "Because you were a child. Because love is quiet. Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything." Judy places a final sheet before the boy, one he stares at for a long, trembling moment. It is a bank confirmation. The money he thought was stolen had been moved, not used, not vanished, moved. "To where?" he asks, voice barely audible. Judy answers for him. "A custodial account, an account in your name, one that could not be touched by the person who manipulated you." The father nods. "I did it to protect your future, not to steal it." The boy's throat tightens visibly. His lower lip trembles. For a moment, he seems to forget they are in a courtroom. He looks at his father not as a defendant, but as a man he never truly saw. Judge Judy's voice softens just slightly. "You accused your father of taking something from you, when he was the only one making sure it stayed safe." The boy's eyes glisten. The arrogance he carried has completely evaporated, replaced by a dawning horror. "I didn't know," he whispers. "I didn't know any of this." Judy slides the stack of papers toward him. "Now you do." The father watches his son break, not violently, but slowly, as understanding sinks into the cracks where pride once lived. Judy closes the folder with a decisive snap. "But here's the part you never expected," she says. "The person who told you your father stole from you knew all of this." The boy does not move at first. He just stares at the folder. The truth sits inside him like a dropped stone, sinking fast, dragging everything with it. Judge Judy watches, silent, knowing the moment is more powerful than any question she could ask. The boy's eyes move slowly down the stack of papers. His breath comes in uneven pulls, as though each document steals a little more air from his lungs. The courtroom feels smaller now, as if the walls are leaning in to witness the collapse of everything he believed. Judy lets the silence stretch. She knows silence is not empty. It is revealing. And in this silence, the boy's composure begins to fracture. His fingers tremble at first, then his jaw, then his eyes, blinking too quickly, trying to hold back the flood building behind them. Finally, he looks at his father, not with anger, not with defiance, but with something that looks like recognition, mixed with shame. "You never stole it," he whispers. The father exhales a breath that seems to have been trapped inside him for months. He nods once, slow, careful, as if any sudden movement might break the fragile moment they've finally reached. "No," he says softly. "I didn't." The boy's throat tightens. "Then why didn't you just tell me?" "Because you were being fed lies," the father replies, "and I was trying to protect you from a truth that belonged to adults. I didn't want you to hate anyone. I didn't want you to carry blame." The boy presses a hand to his forehead, fingers digging into his skin. "But I hated you anyway." The father's eyes soften, not with forgiveness yet, but with understanding. "Yes," he says quietly, "you did." Judy leans forward slightly, not intruding, guiding. "What you feel right now," she tells the boy, "is not guilt. It is clarity. And clarity hurts before it heals." The boy's breath cracks, once sharply, and the first tear slips down his cheek. He wipes it away angrily, ashamed of the emotion that refuses to stay hidden. "I really messed up," he murmurs. "You were misled," Judy corrects, "and you were vulnerable to someone who knew exactly how to twist your fear." The boy's face twists with pain. "They told me he didn't care. They told me he gave up on me." Judy shakes her head. "They lied. They counted on your doubt. They counted on your youth." The father steps forward, just one step, but enough to shift the emotional gravity of the room. "I never gave up on you," he says quietly. "Not once. Not for a second." The boy looks at him, eyes wide and glistening, like he's seeing his father clearly for the first time in years. His voice cracks on the truth he can't escape. "What have I done?" The room goes still. Judge Judy lets the words settle, heavy, necessary, painfully honest. Because now, the storm that drove this case has finally begun to weaken. But destruction is always clearest after the winds die. The boy lowers his head, shoulders shaking, and the father takes one breath, one brave, trembling breath, as if preparing to reveal a truth of his own. Does realizing the truth erase the damage caused, or should betrayal still carry consequence? The father lifts his head, eyes shimmering with something deep. Not anger, not victory, but truth he has carried alone for far too long. The boy's breath still trembles as he wipes at his cheeks, embarrassed by emotions he can't control. Across the room, the father watches him with a fragile mixture of love and heartbreak. It is the look of a man who has waited years for understanding that he feared might never come. Judge Judy senses the shift and leans back, giving him the floor. "Sir," she says gently, "I think it's time your son hears the full truth. Not the version he was fed, but the one you've been carrying." The father nods. His hands tremble slightly as he rests them on the table. "I didn't move the money to hide it," he begins. "I moved it because I got a call." The boy looks up, confused. "A call?" "Yes," the father replies. "From your school counselor. She told me someone filed a request to access your education account, someone who should have never had that information." Judge Judy lifts an eyebrow. "The same person who coached this lawsuit?" The father nods again, pain flickering across his face. "I recognized their handwriting on the form." The boy's eyes widen. "They tried to take my money?" The father's voice softens. "They didn't try, son. They were close. Too close. So I moved the money into a custodial account only I could access until you turned 18. That was the only way to ensure it stayed yours." The boy covers his mouth, stunned, but the father isn't done. "That wasn't the first time," he continues. "There were other attempts. Times they tried to open lines of credit in your name. Times they asked for money from people pretending to represent you." Judge Judy's gaze sharpens. "So you protected him financially for years and kept it quiet." The father nods, hands clasped again, knuckles pale. "I never wanted to turn you against anyone," he says to his son. "And I never wanted you to feel like life was a battle between adults you didn't ask to be caught between." The boy stares at him, stunned. "Why didn't you tell me? I would have believed you." The father smiles sadly. "No," he whispers. "You wouldn't have. Not then. You were too young, too trusting, and they knew exactly how to use that." The boy's face crumples, not with defiance, but a deep, aching guilt. I thought you didn't care, he says. The father shakes his head. I have cared every day of your life. Judy observes the two of them with a measured softness. Truth is heavy, she murmurs, and he's carried it alone. The boy's tears return, this time not of shame, but realization. He leans toward his father, voice cracking. Dad, I'm so sorry. The father closes his eyes, only for a moment, because the apology lands in a place inside him he had kept locked. When he opens them again, relief glimmers through the pain. Judge Judy leans forward, fingertips tapping the bench. Before you fall apart completely, she says, there is something your father has not told you yet, and he needs to. Tears fall silently at first, small, trembling, ashamed. Then the boy breaks, and the courtroom feels it. For a long moment, neither father nor son speaks. The air hums with the weight of things finally said, and things still hiding in the shadows. The boy lowers his head into his hands, his shoulders curling inward, as though trying to fold himself into a smaller, safer shape. He is no longer the arrogant plaintiff, no longer the smirking teenager, just a child who is realizing he has wounded the one person who never stopped trying to protect him. Judge Judy watches him with a steady, unreadable expression. You're not the first young person to trust the wrong adult, she says, her voice carrying a gravity that feels both stern and compassionate. But this, she gestures toward the folder of truth, is what happens when confusion becomes accusation. The boy sniffles hard. I didn't mean to ruin everything. His father shakes his head, pain softening his features. You didn't ruin everything. You made a mistake. A big one, but a fixable one. The boy lifts his face, red eyes, wet cheeks, trembling chin. Dad, I thought you didn't care. You were gone so much. You missed games and meetings, and I thought you were choosing other things over me. The father steps forward one slow step, no hesitation, only heartache. I know I wasn't perfect, he admits. I know I missed things, but every time I did, I thought I was choosing responsibilities that protected you. The boy breathes in sharply, confusion swirling. Protected me from what? From the adult who manipulated you, the father says. From their debts, their anger, their attempts to drag you into their mess. I kept working more hours because I wanted to build a life where you didn't have to carry any of that. The boy's lips quiver. Why didn't you tell me that? The father's eyes glisten. Because I didn't want you to feel like you were the reason I was drowning. The boy's breath breaks, a small, choked sound that slices right through the heart of the courtroom. He covers his face again, but this time it's not shame, it's grief, recognition, love resurfacing through the cracks. I'm such an idiot, he cries softly. I listened to them. I chose them over you. His father kneels slightly, not close enough to touch him, but close enough to reach him. No, you were hurting, and they saw that, and they used it. Judy exhales slowly, her voice dropping to that low, controlled tone she uses when delivering emotional precision. What I see, she says, is a boy who wasn't taught the full story, and a father who carried too much alone. The boy looks at her through tears. I don't know how to fix this. You start, Judy says, by hearing what your father's about to tell you next. The father stiffens, just barely but noticeably. Judy sees it, the boy sees it, and the room stills once more. There's something, Judy continues, your father did years ago, a choice he made, a sacrifice he never told you about. The boy's breath catches. The father's eyes drop to the floor. Judy leans in. Your father once gave up something life-changing, just so he could stay in your life. The father closes his eyes as if bracing for impact. The boy watches him with fear, guilt, and something desperate, a child begging silently for the truth not to hurt more than the lies. Judge Judy folds her hands, letting the gravity settle. Her gaze shifts to the father with a quiet firmness. Tell him, she says. He deserves to know. The father exhales slowly, the sound shaky, like a man opening a door to a memory he locked away for survival. He turns to his son, really turns to him, eyes red, posture wilted from carrying a weight no one knew he bore. It was years ago, he begins. You were 10. The boy blinks. 10. A year of soccer games, braces, school projects, nothing that hinted at hidden sacrifices. I was offered a job, the father continues, a big one, out of state, high salary, benefits, a chance to finally breathe financially. The boy listens, frozen. But, the father says, voice tightening, the person you named threatened to fight for full custody if I took it. They told me I'd abandoned you, that they'd make sure a judge saw it that way. The boy's eyes widen, shock spreading across his face like ink on water. Judy watches him closely. This is what manipulation looks like, she murmurs. The father's voice cracks. I didn't take the job. I turned down the biggest opportunity of my life because I refused to risk losing time with you. The boy inhales sharply, a sound almost like pain. He grips the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. You gave that up? For me? The father nods, swallowing hard. I didn't want applause. I didn't want you to know. I wanted you to feel loved, not responsible. The boy shakes his head slowly, tears flooding again. All these years, I thought you didn't care where I ended up. I thought you chose work over me. No, the father whispers. I chose you over everything. Silence falls, heavy, aching, transformative. The boy's face crumples, emotion pouring out in a messy, unfiltered collapse. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because love shouldn't be a debt, the father says. And telling you about the sacrifice would have turned it into one. Judy softens, the courtroom's harsh lines seeming to blur under her gentler tone. Young man, your father wasn't absent. He was fighting battles you never saw, and he hid them to keep your heart clean. The boy covers his mouth, overwhelmed. I hurt you so bad. The father's jaw shakes. Yes, he says honestly, but you were hurting too, and they preyed on that. The boy's voice breaks completely. Can you ever forgive me? The father blinks, tears rising but not falling. I will, he says, but healing isn't instant. We'll do it step by step, together. Judge Judy gives one small nod. That's the first honest thing said between you two since this case began. The boy wipes his face, breath shaky. The father steadies himself, and Judy leans in again, her tone shifting from gentle to firm. Now, we talk about responsibility. The father stands still, hands clasped loosely in front of him, not in defense, not in anger, but in the quiet exhaustion of a man who has carried too much for too long. Judge Judy watches him with a solemn understanding as he steps forward. The boy sits frozen, eyes red and swollen, staring at his father like he's seeing the man's humanity for the first time. The father takes a breath that trembles at the edges. There's something I need you to hear, he says softly, not as your defendant, not even as your parent, but as the man who spent every day trying to do right by you. The boy nods slowly, bracing himself. I love you, the father says. That part has never changed. But loving you hasn't always been easy, because I've been fighting too many battles at once. Judy watches, still and listening. The father continues, the words thick in his throat. I worked so many hours not because I wanted to be away from you, but because I wanted to build something stable, something safe. Every missed game, every late pickup, I hated myself for it. But I thought one day you'd understand. The boy's lips tremble. I didn't. I know, the father says. That's what hurt the most. He pauses, eyes glistening, not with tears, but with a lifetime of unsaid emotion. Every parent carries a burden. Mine was wondering if my sacrifices made you feel abandoned, if I was doing the right thing, or just creating more distance. The boy looks down, shoulders folding inward. I thought you didn't want to be around me. The father shakes his head immediately. I wanted nothing more than to be around you, but I kept choosing responsibility over presence, and as you got older, I realized too late how that looked from your side. Judy interjects gently. Parents often fight wars their children never see, but children feel the shrapnel anyway. The father nods. Exactly. And when you started pulling away, I blamed myself. I told myself I deserved it. I told myself I failed you. The boy lifts his head. Dad. No. Yes, the father says with quiet grit. I did. Not in the way the lawsuit says. But I failed to protect you from feeling alone. I failed to explain why I had to work so hard. I failed to show you the whole truth before someone else twisted it. The boy swallows hard, guilt flooding his expression. I didn't want to hurt you, the father's voice softens. But you did. And it's okay to admit that, because honesty is the first step to fixing what's broken between us. Judy's gaze narrows, not unkindly, but with purpose. This is where responsibility comes into play. The boy turns toward her, eyes raw. What do I do? You start, she says, by accepting the consequences of your choices, emotionally and legally. The boy's breath hitches. The father looks at him with a mix of protectiveness and sorrow. Not shielding him this time, not stepping in, just standing there, letting his son face what comes next. The boy sits upright, shoulders tight, hands clasped together, as if Judge Judy's bench were an operating table, and he is the one being opened up for examination. Judge Judy adjusts her glasses, and the quiet in the room sharpens. It's not the silence of suspense now, it's the silence of truth settling into bone. The father watches the boy cautiously, torn between wanting to shield him and knowing he cannot. Not this time. Stand, Judy says gently. The boy rises, legs unsteady, eyes flicking from his father to the judge like a cornered animal, unsure where safety lies. You filed a lawsuit against your father, she begins, not out of malice but out of confusion, out of hurt, out of manipulation. But you still filed it. The boy nods, tears already brimming. And when we swept away the lies, she continues, what we found underneath was a father who sacrificed everything for you, and a son who didn't know how much he was loved. The boy squeezes his eyes shut. A single tear escapes. But listening, Judy says, and learning the truth does not erase the consequences of what you did. The boy opens his eyes again, wet, brave, terrified. I know, he whispers, and I'm ready to face it. The father flinches at that, not from fear, but pride and grief mixed like oil and water. He takes a small, tentative step forward, but he doesn't speak. He knows this moment belongs to his son. Judy folds her hands. Let me explain the legal and emotional consequences we're balancing today. She ticks them off one by one. First, filing a baseless claim wastes court time and damages reputations. Second, fabricating evidence, whether fully or partially, is serious misconduct. Third, accusations like these leave scars, even when the truth comes out. The boy nods with each one, shrinking smaller with every word. But, Judy adds, softening, you are a minor. You were misled. And this courtroom is not here to punish children for being manipulated by adults who should have known better. The boy exhales in a small, broken sigh. Which is why, she continues, I am not assigning financial penalties. The father closes his eyes, relieved, but the boy shakes his head slightly. No, the boy says quietly. I should pay something. I caused this. Judy's gaze narrows, not in disapproval, but in appraisal. Responsibility is not always money, she says. Sometimes it is understanding. Sometimes it is rebuilding. She gestures toward the father. Your consequence will be repairing the relationship you nearly shattered. Showing up with honesty, listening, communicating. That is the price. The boy turns to his father, breath trembling. Dad, I'm ready to do that. I'll do whatever it takes. The father swallows, eyes wet. I know you will. Judy lifts her gavel slightly. One last thing, she says, voice calm and steady. A consequence cannot be a punishment if the goal is healing. The courtroom stills as she prepares to strike. The gavel hovers. The boy holds his breath, and Judge Judy prepares to deliver the verdict that will define their new beginning. Before the verdict falls, do you believe people truly change, or do they simply learn the cost of their mistakes? Judge Judy lowers her gavel, not with the fury of punishment, but with the quiet heaviness of truth finally finding its place. The boy grips the edge of the table, trembling. The wooden gavel descends with a soft, measured tap, almost gentle, nothing like the thunderous crack viewers expect. This sound, is different. It carries mercy. It carries clarity. It carries the beginning of something new. Judgment for the defendant, Judge Judy announces calmly. Your father did not steal from you. This case is dismissed. The boy exhales a shaky breath, shoulders collapsing with a mixture of relief and regret so intense it rewrites the air around him. The father stands quietly, absorbing the words not as a victory, but as a release. Judy turns her gaze to the boy. The courtroom lighting catches her eyes just enough to give them a softened glow. Young man, she says, today was a lesson, a painful one, but necessary. The boy nods, shame and gratitude tangled in his expression. You were misled, Judy continues, but you still must rebuild what you damaged, not because you're being punished, because you value the relationship enough to restore it. The boy wipes his face, voice small but certain. I do. She gives a single approving nod. Then start with honesty, continue with humility, and finish with consistency. The father's breath catches a bit at the word consistency. It echoes the very thing he struggled with, being present, being steady, being enough. Judy sees the flicker of emotion cross his face and softens just slightly. Sir, she says to him, you've carried a heavy load alone. You don't have to anymore. He nods, voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, Your Honor. The bailiff gives a low, all rise, but neither father nor son moves immediately. They simply look at each other, two people who walked into this courtroom as adversaries and are leaving as something closer to whole. The boy steps around the table slowly. His feet drag, not out of reluctance, but out of fear he might not deserve what he's approaching. When he reaches his father, he stops, close enough to touch, far enough to retreat if rejected. I'm sorry, the boy whispers, for everything, for believing lies, for hurting you, for not seeing you. The father's jaw trembles. He takes a moment, a real, painful, human moment, and then places a hand on his son's shoulder. You see me now, he says softly. That's enough to start. The boy nods, tears returning silently. Can we fix it? Yes, the father says, voice steady, warm, but slowly. Together. As they walk out of the courtroom side by side, no dramatic embrace, no sweeping music, just two silhouettes moving toward the hallway's soft golden light. It feels like the beginning of a new chapter, not the end of a case. Judge Judy watches them go, expression unreadable but satisfied. Some justice is loud, some justice is harsh. But today, justice whispered, and healing answered.